Okay, so it's showtime and we're live. So how are you, Jonathan?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Stephen. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm excellent, thank you. So you have the thunderstorms?
We are drowning in thunderstorms here. We've had flash floods in Warwick. We've pretty much had it every single night for the last week. I think it's forecast for the next few days as well. So yeah, very stormy, very hot, and very sweaty. But what about you?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very strange. So my wife keeps on looking at her iPad and looking at the weather, and it says thunderstorms at like 4 o'clock, and then it goes. She looks again, and it goes from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I've heard some thunder and I've heard some lightning, but I haven't seen any rain. So
Right.
yesterday, there you go, the excitement of my day. I went to hang the washing out, put it out, heard the thunder and the lightning, and put it straight back in, and it didn't rain. So frustrating. Hi, Jim. Thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully you can hear us loud and clear. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful. I know shortly you're on to take another multi-million pound listing. So I'm grateful for your time. So you have got 3 Fine and Country offices based in Leamington, Stratford and Droitwich Spa.
That's correct.
You've also, congratulations, just been appointed as a non-executive director of Fine and Country. So now you're going to be involved in that as well. So tell us, how did you get into agency in the first place? What's your story?
Okay, interesting backstory. My dad was a joiner. My dad's dad was a joiner. I was knocking in nails for a living, and I met a chap in a pub who's still an estate agent today. Funny enough, he's one of my competitors in Leamington Spa, but we're still really good friends. And after meeting him, after 60 seconds, he said, "My God, you're an estate agent. Come in and have a talk to us." And my first day as an estate agent was January the 1st, 2000. So
Okay.
it was the very first day of the millennium, and I wasn't a good joiner. I'll admit. It wasn't a bad profession. It was an honest living, but I wasn't very good. And I used to clock watch. I didn't really enjoy it. And then I was immersed in the world of estate agency, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the thrill of the chase. I loved meeting people, seeing properties. And I know people say this, and it's almost a bit cliche, but I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life ever since. I've spent 20 years now doing what I enjoy, I genuinely don't switch off from it. I do it in the evenings, I do it in the weekends, I do it when I'm on holiday. I'm permanently immersed in the world of estate agency because I live and breathe it. I feel very fortunate to do what I do. So yeah, that's a bit of the backstory, I guess.
Phenomenal. Hi, Andrea. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Eddie. Eddie says congratulations. So thanks very much for joining today, Eddie. So another big congratulations. You were recognised in 2019 as the best overall operator from 325 Fine and Country offices across the world. So that is phenomenal. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's the secret? How did you manage it? Apart from obviously it's a hobby, and you can see, I can already see the passion, the joy de vivre that you've already got. But that is phenomenal achievement, absolutely phenomenal.
So the first thing I guess is important is to clarify the award. I would say it's not me that's won the award. It's my team. It was the Leamington Spa team. So it was all of the individuals that are part of that team, from the administrator through to the sales associates. And I'm no more or less important than any of those other individuals that are part of that team. Because we're a well-oiled machine, we work really well together. Everyone's got different strengths in different areas. I'm really fortunate that I've worked with some people, people like Mark Griffiths. I've worked with him for nearly 15 years. So it was us as a team that were recognised. I felt very humbled to win the award. I walked away from it feeling a bit guilty. I didn't know if we deserved to win it or not. There were some incredible results. Rugby, one of our neighbouring operations, again, great people there. And I almost felt that year that maybe they were better than us, and they probably deserved that recognition. I guess we've done quite well in Leamington. because we have really strong standards in terms of the way that we work, and that's materialised in our results. We've now sold 10 of the 11 most expensive houses. We've got 2 of the 6 most expensive sales within the neighbouring town, Warwick. You can look at most of the postcode districts, and you can go to Land Registry and you can look at the top and you'll pick out the Fine and Country properties that we've sold. But I've got to be completely frank and honest. Prior to working with Fine and Country, I was a good agent. I was part of a mass market brand, and we had a really strong market share, 45%. And I used to feel really hurt that we wouldn't get called out to the big £1 million plus properties. And I don't know if I'm a bit of a narcissist. Why don't they love me? Why won't they call me? We've got this huge market share. And we wouldn't even get a second look. It wasn't as if we'd had a chance to pitch for the business and then they'd choose a more traditional upper quartile agent. We weren't given a look in. And thankfully, Fine and Country gave us that platform in terms of local, regional, national and international marketing to reach a wider audience, and also for vendors with that type and style of property to feel more comfortable that that's the agent that should be representing them and their type of property. So although I'm in love with the industry of estate agency, I'm actually super passionate about Fine and Country as well, because I recognise what it's done for building our business and getting us through doors that maybe we wouldn't have been able to, and all of the tools and the resources that they give to the licensees. We use every one of them because they all work, and our success is the byproduct of that. So I think that's probably why we were recognised as one of the better agents. We use the tools and it's given us the success and the results, and hence why we've set records in so many different areas. Does that make sense?
Phenomenal, thank you. So we've got another motivational speaker on here, Neil Giller.
Okay.
And he says recognition. And I just want to come back to something you said, because I love what you said. It's about a team effort. And you mentioned people in the team that I personally think are just as important, and that's the backroom staff, the administrator side, as well as the people that are doing the big fees, and they play a massive part on it. And I love what you said, but I want to pick up on something you said about standards. Everybody has standards. So what are the standards, or if you can share a couple of standards that you have, and how did you manage to get people to, because I think a lot of people watching this struggle to get buy-in from their team when it comes to non-negotiable minimum standards culture. How do you develop that? As Neil Giller says, even the office cleaner plays a part.
Plays a part.
And they do. Yeah.
So look, in terms of standards, I guess there's so many to talk about. We haven't got time to go into every detail. And I was talking to Peter Lawrence today, and he was talking about the way that he works. If he walked into an office and there was a bit of rubbish on the floor or something, he'd bend over, pick it up and put it in the bin himself, and he'd expect everybody else to do the same. So there isn't anything that I'd ever ask anybody to do within the office that I wasn't prepared to live and breathe myself. And I absolutely agree with that. I think in terms of professional standards, the most important thing is the way that you manage your instructions. Now, estate agents have got a horrific reputation, and quite rightly so in most instances, in terms of their standard of work, their professionalism, and we try and elevate ourselves above and beyond those standards so that we stand out from the crowd. And for me, there's 3 really important things when you've been given the mandate to sell a property. It's presentation, it's exposure, and service. And those 3 things, it's like a 3-legged stool. 1 or 2 of the 3 is useless. You'll fall over. You need all 3 working in unison, otherwise you haven't got that stool. So presentation for me is how you present the property. So it's your professional standards for your photographs, your floor plan, your description, your write-up, it's your videos. When I say videos plural, because it's more than just one production, I think you need to do lots of different ones. It's the fact that you build a draft contract prior to putting the property to the market, so that you know that you've got a correct title with everything in place that needs to be, so that you're selling it correctly and you're not backpedaling at a later date. All of those things for me are what make up the presentation of the property. So that's your first standard. Your second standard is your exposure, in terms of where you then promote that property. And everything that falls in this category is your online presence. So you've got social media, which is Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of those things. You've then got property portals, Rightmove, Zoopla, Fine and Country, Prime Location, On the Market. You've then got your printed publications. Fine and Country has a national publication, it has an international publication, you have local ones, you then have a PR team. And all of those things encompass the exposure of your campaign and your exposure standards. And then finally, the last category is service. And this is how you treat and deal with people. It's your response times. It's whether you accompany all of your viewings. It's whether you handle negotiations personally. It's whether you do the sales chasing yourself. It's whether you hold the hand of the customer from the start of the process right the way through to the very end of it, so that they're only dealing with one person and not having to explain themselves over and over. If you get the presentation absolutely right, and you've got the best video production in the world, but no one sees it because your exposure standards are off point, then it's going to be a wasted campaign. In the same respect, if your presentation and exposure are brilliant, but the person answering the telephone and dealing with the inquiries is somebody that doesn't give a rat's ass how they speak to or treat with people, then you're going to fall down at that hurdle. So for me, the three standards that we do not compromise on are the presentation, the exposure, and the service. And we require a contribution from the vendor for marketing. And if we don't get that, we'll walk away from a listing, because personally, I will not launch a property to the market unless it's got a full video production, unless it's got a 24-page brochure, unless it's done a journalist interview in terms of the description and the write-up. And I will happily walk away from an instruction unless the vendor is prepared to make that commitment, as I am. So, and I guess from those standards, everything else sort of rings true. So they're the three for me: presentation, exposure, and service.
Phenomenal. Thank you. And thank you for your explanation on all of them. Great detail you've gone into. So I'm sure everybody watching this will get loads from it and take loads from it. Vendor paid advertising.
Yeah.
That's a challenge for agents. I mean, obviously I've been to Arik. I think have you been over there?
I spoke twice at Arik.
Oh, you show off now. Okay.
Yeah, I spoke twice at Arik.
What did you speak over there? What did you talk?
So the first year I did lettings. Funny enough, it's not exactly a discipline that I'm exactly well known for. And then the second year it was leadership and management and how to tackle a changing market. Because at the time we'd had the global credit crunch. I was quite fortunate enough to visit John McGrath's business and spend time at his offices. I went to his Christmas party. And although vendor paid advertising is a big thing in Australia, we were actually doing it back in the UK. Back then, I think even then we were charging £500 plus VAT. And it is hard. There have been many instances where I've been sat in a living room with a vendor and they said, well, I'm not paying that because the other agents, that you're the only agent in the town that's asking for a contribution to the marketing. And I make it abundantly clear, I don't want to be every other agent in the town. I want to be completely unique and different. And the second that I compromise on this, I'm just going to become one of the other agents. So in any instance where the vendor's not prepared to commit to it, I'll walk away from the instruction. And that is painful, and it's counterintuitive for a salesperson to be prepared to walk away from good business when it's a sellable listing, it's coming on at the right price. But actually, every listing needs to turn into two to get exponential growth. And you will only attract vendors with the top properties if you're advertising and promoting those properties to the best of your ability. And otherwise, they're just going to go to every other agent. So, it is difficult. And interestingly, I've found that recruiting people from outside of the industry has been easier than recruiting people from competitors, because they have so many bad habits in terms of the way that they work. They find it really difficult to adjust. I'm not saying it's impossible, and we have got success stories, but I have also had it very easy with people that have pretty much come straight from university or straight from another profession, and we've just said, this is the way that we do it, and they've accepted it as gospel. And people are going out and signing up instructions with £1,000 to £2,000 plus VAT up front. And it just shows it's a mindset thing. If you've never done it, you'll really struggle to get it. But if that's the way that it is, then people accept it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were discussing that on Tuesday with Simon Bradbury. We said exactly the same thing about, people have these preconceptions, and it's very strange that somebody who's new to the industry manages to sell a property in the first week where it's been on the market for 2 or 3 months, and everybody else thinks, oh, it's not going to sell. We were talking about financial service leads, and I think he mentioned one particular person in his first month has broken the record for the amount of leads they've got. And then after 3 months, people are saying, oh, it doesn't work. And, so he's gone down as a result of it. But yeah, it's not having the preconceptions, definitely. You mentioned about mindset. And I know through lockdown, actually, you were in hospital, and every day you were giving out these really positive messages. So, I'm sure it wasn't easy being in hospital and there at the time. How do you have such a strong mental attitude that keeps you going, even when challenging times? And, as agents, it's like a roller coaster, isn't it? We have unbelievable days, and then we have real shitty days, and we go to the depths of despair to the highs. How, people watching this, how can they learn to deal with it? And because it is a challenging job that we have, and it's the same in any industry.
Yeah, you're right, it is. And you have highs and lows, and you have great days and you have terrible days. And anyone that wants stability, you're probably looking in the wrong sector. You want to look at something else. But if you enjoy the thrill of the chase, then you kind of live and breathe that, and it's insatiable. You get drawn to it. In terms of a positive frame of mind, I think it's always come quite naturally to me. But I have got to give quite a bit of credit to Sean Newman. I've been really fortunate to work with Sean since he come and tapped me up, and he headhunted me back in 2001. I was working for Connells at the time. And he's the most positive person in the world. You can't not be positive when you're around him. He's constantly focused on the solution. It doesn't matter what the problem is. It's focus on the solution. It's interesting. I was playing golf with somebody the other day, and they said, "Oh, of course, I don't like the look of the clouds over there." And all around us were black clouds. And I did a full 360, and in one small section of the clouds, the sun was poking through. And I went, "Yeah, but look, the sun's shining over there." And he sort of looked at me, and I didn't draw attention to it at the time. I just walked on and carried on. I thought, yeah, maybe that's not quite how everyone else would react, but I do genuinely try and look for the good and look for the positive. I think it's a more rewarding and a better frame of mind to have than constantly looking for the bad or for the problem. It's a positive mindset. I think is really important in this industry.
And where do you get that growth mindset from then? Are you born with it, or you're just inspired by the Seans of these world, the Neil Gillers of this world out there?
So look, I do a lot of self-development. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of learning. I try and emulate successful people, see what they do, and emulate their behaviour, their frame of mind. And I guess a little bit of it comes naturally, but I genuinely try and look for the good. And actually, when you have that type of frame of mind. It's the law of attraction. The people around you, you tend to attract people that are positive and upbeat. And, when you meet an individual, one of three things is going to happen afterwards. You're either going to walk away from that meeting feeling inspired and upbeat. You're going to feel the same as when you went into that discussion, or you're going to feel a bit downbeat and depressed. So I try and make it of a purpose of everyone that I come into contact with. I want them to walk away feeling a bit inspired, upbeat, and positive. Nobody wants to be a doom monger that's constantly pointing out the bad. If there's three things, don't walk away feeling flat and exactly the same as you entered the discussion. Don't walk away feeling downbeat. Or, try and be positive so that somebody's feeling upbeat and inspired.
Well, you're definitely inspiring people today, so thank you. And you're very upbeat and very positive, so thank you. So, Paul, thanks very much for joining us. Chris Watkin, employing from people out of the industry is a good call. Mindset is everything. Neil Giller, newbies don't know what defeat is. They ain't tainted. And positive mental attitude. You talked there about the self-improvement, and you read a lot, and success leads clues. So who do you follow? You mentioned Sean and his motivation and his upbeatness. Who else in the industry do you follow, and what are you doing to self-develop and read, and books that will help people watching this, please?
So look, I follow everyone, and I do mean everyone. Obviously, at the top of the tree is you, Stephen.
Obviously, it goes without saying, and I didn't even pay you to say that. You're a gentleman. Thank you. You can come again.
The David Attenborough of the estate agency industry. Simon Whale and the Kerfuffle crew will be turning in their graves here in that. But look, I follow everybody. We lost my father-in-law just under 2 weeks ago. It was a really sad time, and I was scheduled to do the Paul Long Facebook camp, and I had to miss it. I had responsibilities here. I had to look after my wife and her mum, and it was a really difficult time. And thankfully, he recorded that, so I'm catching up on those sessions now, so that I haven't missed them. Paul Long, in terms of a Facebook guru, it's essential that you're tracking what he does. Christopher Watkin, I can see him on the feed here. We've had him in and training with our team members individually. Chris talks so much sense in terms of how to operate in the digital world of our industry, and it's something that's lacking with so many of the agents that operate. So, but I also look for inspiration outside of it. Nikki Stevenson, who's been appointed as the head of UK at Fine & Country, she put me onto a good book recently. I thought I had a copy of it here, but I have Edward de Bono, Six Thinking Hats. And I've literally just powered through this in the last week. An incredible book. Have you read this?
I have been at a Vistage meeting where we've discussed it, and I was on the podcast as well, actually, and I think it was Tom Ferry and Tom Ballou, and they were talking about it as well.
So if you've ever been in a meeting where everybody is arguing with each other and they're all arguing the toss over the same thing, and you want to have more constructive, concise meetings, read that book. It's incredible. And I haven't had the chance to implement anything yet, but certainly within our network of our local offices where we get together regularly, we share ideas, best practice, and we agree strategic things. I'm going to encourage everybody to read that book just so that we can have shorter, sharper, more constructive meetings. So I'm permanently looking for inspiration from everyone that I come into contact with, and I'm constantly learning and trying to grow. And I think anybody that thinks that they know it all, it's probably a bad mindset, and you're going to be perfectly equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists, because everything's changing every single day. So what you knew yesterday is probably going to be redundant today. You've got to be constantly learning.
100% for me, every day's a learning day. And whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's listening to inspirational people like you, Simon, you just take so much inspiration from it. Who do you look up to in the industry that you highly respect, that have done some great things that people should follow as well?
So I'm going to look to a couple of people within the Fine and Country group, if that's okay, because I think it's really important, because they do genuinely inspire me. There's a chap called Lee Armstrong who works for Fine and Country Derby. Relatively, he's not a coach or a trainer or an estate agency guru in that sense. He's an estate agent. He is a great example of what happens when you do everything properly and by the book. His pipeline is incredible. He literally, out of lockdown, had a £250,000 sales month in terms of fees in 1 month. So like, I hear results like that, and that's what inspires and motivates me. Sam Funnell is one of the best Fine and Country license owners in the UK. He runs a rugby operation. It's got 5 postcode districts. You know, and I've worked with Sam. We share listings together because we have this referral process where we have collaboration if you're dealing with things outside of your territory. He and his partner Claire, they're on point with their social media advertising, and she's so far ahead of the game, it's untrue. I mean, maybe not quite on a par with Paul Long, but still very good, and they've got a great working partnership. So, you know, I look for inspiration amongst the network. It's not necessarily just the estate agency gurus, but I do everything else as well. I listen to your podcast with Luke Sinclair and Andy Overman. I've listened to them all throughout the lockdown. I was out walking every day, listening to them all, but I do that for an hour every morning. I've done all of the Kerfuffle podcasts. I've done all the Keller Williams stuff. I'm constantly trying to learn and absorb, and you know, even if it's stuff that you already know, but it's just reminding you of those things and putting it to the forefront of your mind. You know, I had a picture up in the wall of my office in Leamington. If you want to, I think it's if you want to. It was Abraham Lincoln. If you want to chop down a tree, and you give me 5 hours to do it, spend the first couple of hours sharpening the saw. And you know, that's so true. There's so many agents out there slugging, trying to get their fees up, trying to get their conversion up, and yet they're not actually learning any new techniques. They're just doing what they've always done, and I would say they're not going to get what they've always got. They're just going to cease to exist because some whippersnapper is going to come up and reinvent the way that estate agency works and leave them in the dark ages.
Fantastic. So Nikki, love new books. So Nikki, if you can put what you're reading at the moment, let us know so we can look at them. Neil Giller, I love that John and his valued crew tinker called learning and growing is the only way to go forward. Sean Driscoll, who is in Leamington,
he was the chap that I was playing golf with when I looked around and said, yeah, but look, the sunshine over in the corner. So,
there you go. Did you shoot a few birdies?
Me, no. Sean, yes. Sean's a good golfer. I'm just learning. I'm relatively new. So I played like 15 years ago, but then put my clubs away. So I'm just starting again. But yeah, Sean's very handy.
Good. You talked about there, you know, learning all this stuff, which is fantastic. The best agents for me are the ones that take action and implement it. You know, how do you choose what to action and what to implement, and to again, you know, I'm sure it's relatively easy with your team, but for people here that are watching this, how can you get the buy-in for your team to take action and implement, you know, some of the same the ideas that you're bringing on? And Sean Driscoll says you're very modest. You shot 7 holes in one that day.
Yeah, I would bring Sean Newman back into the fold. Sean is one of the most initiative-driven individuals that you could ever come across. He wants to do everything, and I do mean everything. An insatiable appetite for new technology, innovation, everything else. I'm a bit more cautious. I want to see proof of concept before I go knee deep into something and then implement it across the whole spectrum, across the whole business. So I will test something. If it works and I see success, I'll extend the test period. If that test period is still yielding success, I'll continue with it moving forward. We will also revisit other things. And, you know, if it's still doing what it's set out to do, we'll maybe carry on. If there's another product that then can take over, we'll switch. if something isn't delivering as it was before, we'll lose it and get rid of it. And that's very difficult, because there are, I mean, certainly in terms of the prop tech sense, you could spend 70% of your day in prop tech, in websites and doing other things, and actually taking you away from the bread and butter of a state agency. So, I guess testing things, getting a proof of concept, and then implementing it is the way that we work. But we have something called a bespoke marketing menu for our customers, and in that we categorize everything in presentation, exposure, and service. So it's a great way for organizing things in terms of what our marketing strategy is, and things come in and out of that as and when we see fit. And then that's what we kind of live and breathe by, and we say, look, this is, and not everything in there is going to be relevant to every property. For instance, you've got drone under presentation, and that's not going to be relevant to a 3-bedroom apartment in the very town centre of Leamington Spa, a funky penthouse or something along those lines. So you test it, get a proof of concept, see that it works, and then commit to it.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. So Nikki's rereading Ewing by John McGrath, which is an exceptional book. So I would definitely put, if you're not reading it, put it on your reading list. I know part of my mastermind group, we were talking about it, and whilst we were talking about it, they all went on Amazon, and I think it was the first copy was bought at 50p, then it went up to about £22 very quickly. Rumour has it you are an exceptional negotiator. Why is it? And negotiating skills are obviously incredibly important in agency, and I think all agents need to be skilled negotiators when it comes to helping vendors achieve the highest net amount for their biggest tax-free asset. What advice would you give viewers on negotiation, please?
So I'm going to ask you to be specific. In terms of negotiation, in relation to what? Negotiating your fees, negotiating a sale between a buyer and a seller, because all of them have slightly different nuances in terms of the way that you work, and actually they're different games.
Look, I agree. For me, it's about the customer. Okay. So, this is their biggest tax-free asset. We as agents can make a massive, massive difference by not accepting that first offer. So some agents will get really excited. They've been told the vendor will take 900,000. They get that 900,000. They're jumping up and down. They think, oh, this is easy. I've done a deal. Whereas the exceptional agent will think, well, hold on a second. Potentially this person, he's told me he's got a budget of 950. We've had conversations. I'm going to get every last penny from him, because that's my job as a skilled negotiator to get that. When it comes to fees, I think it's down to mindset. And again, I think every agent is worth between 2 and 2.5%, but they have to demonstrate that. So I agree, it's a different discussion. But for me, what's important is I want to help that vendor. We can make a massive difference, finding out obviously what their reason for that move, but that 10,000, 15,000, 100,000 pound could be life changing. And I think as skilled negotiators, that should be what we're good at.
So yeah, agree with all of that. In terms of negotiating your fee, for me, it's really easy. There is no negotiation. We are 2.5% plus VAT, and that's it. Take it or leave it. And I really don't get drawn into a battle. And I'm quite forceful. If somebody says, well, is there something that you can do? I say, yes, I can put it up. And that normally ends the conversation there and there. And like the guy's face on the last instruction, I'm just putting it to the market now, Rockmill, I said exactly that. He said, what can you do with your fee? I said, I can put it up. Literally that. So in terms of negotiating for your vendor, you have an absolute duty of care to get them the best possible price. So some principles of negotiation for me: 1, you never lie. 2, you're really proactive. 3, you're always working for the vendor. 4, in instances where you have more than one party bidding, you and the vendor have more control over the process. And that will come as a direct result of your pricing strategy. And if your pricing strategy is keen, you'll have more people across the threshold, more buyers, more offers, and you'll have more leverage in the negotiation. Now, my ideal scenario is I have a minimum of 2 people bidding for the same property. Buyers hate it. And I'm sorry, I'm not acting for the buyer, I'm acting for the vendor. If I had £1 for every time a buyer said to me, well, I don't want to get into a bidding war, well, obviously you don't, because you want to buy it at the lowest possible price. I'm working for the vendor. I want to get the highest possible price. If you've got 2 people that are after the same property, I have one line that I say repeatedly over and over. Because they'll say, how much is the other party offered? And I'll say, look, I'm not going to tell you that. In this instance, and I've done this for 20 years, there is going to be somebody that is going to be very disappointed. And I'm going to have to make a phone call to them to let them know that they've not got the property. And when you say that, it crystallizes their thinking. They think, Christ, that might be me that has that phone call to say that I haven't got it. And because that person is going to be really disappointed, I don't want them to think that there's any skullduggery in terms of what's happened in the negotiation. So I'm not going to tell you what they've offered or what the vendor will accept, and vice versa. I won't tell them, and I won't play one party off the other. So if you want it, you've got to put your best foot forward. I'm not the decision maker. I'm the purveyor of information. I will get your offer, I will qualify it, and I will put it to the vendor. And ultimately, it's down to the vendor to then make that decision. And when you sell it in terms of what they might lose rather than what they might gain, it tends to yield the best results. So, and that tactic has worked well for me for years. I'm going to have to make a phone call to one of these interested parties, and I'm going to have to let them know that they've not got the property, and they're going to be really disappointed. And I don't want you to think that there was any skullduggery or that I was playing one party off another. So put your best foot forward, and that works really well for me. And it has done for years.
Brilliant. Okay, look, I'm really conscious of time, and I'm really grateful for the time that you've given, and I know that you're going to take on another property very soon. So one final question. If you were starting again an agency today, or you were new in the business, what 3 things, what bits of advice would you give that person?
Invest in learning as much and as early as possible. Don't think that you can add to that later. If you're starting an agency, I mean, this is another top tip from John McGrath. He said, even if you haven't got valuations and listing opportunities, you get out and meet as many buyers as you physically can, because you build your own personal brand, your own portfolio, your own database of opportunities. I think that, and I'll use a couple of examples of a few people within our network. There's a girl called Marie in the Northampton office, and she joined us in the lockdown. So started as an estate agent in the lockdown, and she's got, I think, a sold pipeline in excess of about 7 million. She's got instructions coming out of her ears, and she started in the lockdown with no ability to be able to go out, and she did it all by posting content every single day. She was reusing Fine and Country instructions from other areas of the locations overseas. She got out into a local community and started to do charity events. She built her social presence on Facebook and LinkedIn, and already she's seen as a go-to. I mean, she's got a video production of a property that she's put on that's £2.5–3 million, incredible place. And she's done that from a standing start. So, anybody can do it as long as you follow the right principles. And then emulate the success of other agents, look at what they're doing, and then steal that idea as your own. And it doesn't have to be somebody within your town. There are good agents all across the country. Follow them all, look and think, I love that, and then put it into your own business. Not research and development, rip off and duplicate. I think Peter Knight said that originally.
It is, in fact. So again, I was walking this morning and I was listening to Tom Ferry interviewing a guy called David Meltzer, and he said exactly the same thing. He said R&D. So he said, no, not research and development, rip off and duplicate. Put it in your own words, but actually, if that's, you know, where people have been successful, use it. Why not?
Yeah. Well, look, you know, some of the best products in the world. Was the iPhone the first mobile phone? It wasn't. Did Microsoft had an iPod? Well, I can't. Was it Zoom? Was it called a Zoom? I can't remember what it was called, but they had one years before Apple launched theirs. So you don't have to be first at something, but you can then nick the idea and then perfect it yourself and become even better. So it's the evolution of the idea, but go out there, see what's working and see what you can implement into your own business.
There you go, Jim. Agreed. Don't reinvent the wheel, make it better. Neil Giller, spot on. You said something about being inspirational, being upbeat, and being positive. So you've definitely inspired me. I'm sure you've inspired all the viewers watching now on replay. You've given some fantastic insights, loads of gold as well. You're definitely upbeat, so I can see it's a hobby for you. Love your passion, and you know, your positive attitude is a joy. So really grateful for your time. Thank you, because I know you're incredibly busy. Really appreciate it. Thank everybody also for watching live. And also if you're watching on replay, thanks a lot. Next Tuesday I've got Kate Faulkner, who's a property journalist, joining me at 12:30, and then I've got my partner, one of my partners in crime, Luke Sinclair, joining me on Thursday, and we're going to be talking about Arik, Tom Ferry, and all his travels around the country. Sean absolutely totally sums up John. Neil Giller would like to meet you, so there you go, opportunity for you, another motivational speaker. So I will put you two in contact if that's okay with you, John.
Yeah, happy to. Look forward to meeting you, Neil.
Brilliant. So thank you, you've been phenomenal. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you all for watching. Have a great Thursday afternoon and a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday. So goodbye from both of us.
See you later. Thanks for the opportunity.